Hey guys, this is different than my normal video. This is just me trying to give my opinion on some current Switch going on, some current news events and debates. So it's not really scripted at all. It's just me ranting for like 14 minutes straight, but I hope you enjoy regardless. So I've seen a lot of debate recently on if the Switch 2 will be a repeat of the Wii U. For those who don't know, the Wii U was the console that followed up the Nintendo Wii, and it was a terrible failure. It failed horribly. It was probably the biggest flop in Nintendo history, besides maybe like the Virtual Boy. So the Wii U, awful, garbage system. So there was a few different reasons why the Wii U was so bad. Namely, was the fact that people just didn't know it was a new console. People just thought, oh, the Wii U's an accessory. It also, had a lot of features people didn't care about, which caused the price to go up. People I've been seeing saying the Wii U had an unfair price. I don't agree with that. It was like, I think $350, $400 at launch. That's pretty typical. I think maybe even less than that. But, the Wii U failed miserably. The Wii U was awful. But the console itself, pretty damn good, if I'm being honest. I personally have a Wii U, and I love it. I love that Wii U. I've had it for years. Yeah. I'm a Wii U defender to an extent. But there's no denying that it was a commercial failure and overall a low point for Nintendo. It being the follow-up to the Wii, it was kind of a second revision of that console. And so, with the Switch 2 being announced and the information we've been learning about it, there's a strong concern that the Switch 2 is just going to be another Wii U, in that it is a second version of a console, it's a sequel console, that is making a lot of mistakes after the huge success of the previous console, and it will fail horribly. I've been seeing that kind of discussion all over the internet, and I just wanted to weigh in and give my opinion on that, because I think that both the sides defending the Switch 2 and the side calling it the next Wii U have some issues with their thought processes. Because the thing is, already, so far, the Switch 2 has made a lot of mistakes. Well, at least, I shouldn't say mistakes. I should say divisive decisions. Because I watched the Nintendo Direct, and I loved it. I loved the Direct. I loved the new Mario Kart World. I loved Donkey Kong. I forgot the name there. I love Donkey Kong. I love Mario Kart. I love all the features they showed off. I was very pleasantly surprised and very satisfied with the Switch 2 Direct. I'm not necessarily in the popular opinion there, though, because I have been seeing all over the internet and in real life people saying they were disappointed. Even my friend just earlier today was telling me, yeah, they liked it, but they were a bit disappointed. They really wanted 3D Mario. And I was like, well, isn't 3D Donkey Kong enough? They're not really that different. And my friend was like, no, it just doesn't have the same vibe. I don't want to play as a big monkey. I can't relate, but I can understand that. There's probably, if this one person has having that thought process of, I don't want to be a big monkey, I'm sure multiple people will. So, people already with the debate, with the Direct, were somewhat divisive on it. Like, some people like me really liked it, some people were not such big fans. And that, that happens. But it's also not quite what we wanted. Because, like, any other Direct, that would be one thing. That's kind of standard for a Direct, where people walk away going, oh, I don't know, I expected a little better, it was fine. For the Switch 2 Direct, people were hoping for another Nintendo Switch 2017 Direct, which just had game after game, a ton of first-party reveals, big hype series that we haven't seen in a long time. And I can definitely understand why people came in with that expectation, but I think, in all fairness, that was never the most realistic expectation. Because the Switch 2 was coming... Oh, no, sorry, the Switch 1 was coming off of the failure of the Wii U. The Switch 1 had almost everything to prove. The Switch 2, on the other hand, is coming off a massive success. They just need to get the first few bios in, and then they'll hopefully be able to ride that wave and build up a library over a longer period of time. So, why are people calling this the next Wii U? Well, one, because it disappointed the Direct. And let me walk back and explain why some more of the issues with the Wii U. Like, one, people didn't know it was different from Wii. Two, Nintendo was really overconfident after the huge success of the Wii. That Nintendo has a kind of track record of doing that almost. Where it was like, the NES did really great, the SNES wasn't quite different enough for a lot of people's liking and didn't compete well with Sega. So they made the N64. Still wasn't really a monetary success, but, you know, critically it was received well as it was a big 3D jump. So then they did the GameCube, kind of more of the same, not so well liked. Then they brought out the Wii. Alright, do something big different, Blue Ocean. Again, this was the opposite of, critically, this was not as much of a success. However, financially, the Wii got so many people to play it. Like, that was in almost every household, at least in America. And so, with the next console, the Wii U, they were just like, alright, let's just do the Wii again. We'll get everyone to buy it again. That did not work. People did not think it was different enough from the Wii. They did not even know it was a separate console. A lot of people just thought it was an accessory for the Wii. And so people thinking Nintendo's falling into that same pattern with the Switch 2. I'll be honest, I don't think people saying that are completely wrong. Here's the thing. Here's my personal belief. I don't believe the Switch 2 will be nearly as big of a failure as the Wii U was. But I think it might get off to a rockier start than we were really expecting. Because already, people have been leveling a lot of complaints. Namely, and most importantly, the price of the games. As you probably have heard, Mario Kart World, which has gameplay footage on the screen, is, I'm pretty sure, $80. There's been people saying it's $90. That's maybe in the UK, but in the US, at least as far as all information has said, it's only $80. And a lot of people are pretty rightfully upset about this. Like, I know I personally don't want to spend $80 on Mario Kart, on any video game. $80 is insane. Like, I'm gonna buy it, but I don't know how I'm gonna afford it, if that makes sense. So, there's the obvious question of, alright, so Nintendo's alienating a lot of their consumer base by pricing it so high. Are they gonna, have trouble selling this console? And I think, honestly, yes. Now, here's the thing. I can't blame Nintendo completely for the really high price point of the Switch 2 games, because at the end of the day, it's because of Trump's tariffs. I don't want to get political here, but it's because of the tariffs put on the US government. They have to upsell these games in order to make a profit. But also, it is really annoying, and I'm upset about it. Like, I don't want to spend $80 on a video game. And I do think that, sadly, even if, I probably couldn't think of a better solution, it will impact the sale of the Switch 2s. Because I think people won't want to spend so much money on these video games. I think especially considering that these appeal to families so much, they'll go, alright, we already have a Switch 1, we already have a Mario Kart on it, we don't need this. And I couldn't blame them for that. And I think a lot of people don't even realize it's a full, next generation console. I'm sure a lot of people think it's comparable to the OLED model. I never got a Switch OLED, because it was just a revision of the Switch, which I already had. And I feel like the Switch 2 might fall in the same kind of place. Now, the real problem with the Wii U was that it was poorly marketed. And so that people didn't realize it was its own console, or even if they did, they didn't really want it. And it definitely didn't get any marketing towards adults, it was all kids. And here's why I think the Switch 2 might have a rough few months, but they'll bring it together. I do believe that the Nintendo of today is a lot smarter than the Nintendo of 10 or so years ago. Well, I think exactly 10 years ago. Nintendo back then, the Wii U was an unprecedented failure. And there's never been a console that flopped so hard. Already, I think there's enough hype for the Switch 2 to where it's gonna be at least a little better than that. Or probably a lot better than that, closer to GameCube numbers. Maybe even more. But with the fact that, like, yeah, it's not going to do as well as maybe projected. But I think it'll do well enough to where Nintendo, and I think no matter what, Nintendo would do this, because it's just a different climate in the gaming community. Like, the Wii U failed at a time when people already were like, man, maybe Nintendo's out of the game. They had everything to prove with the Switch, but now the Switch is like the third best-selling console of all time. They don't need to prove themselves nearly as much. So I'm guessing if it does fail, which it might, Nintendo will look at that and go, alright, let's make some changes. Let's quickly just go in, maybe lower the price of some of these where possible, and remarket some things. Just get this console into people's hands and then sell them games. And then I think then the Switch 2 maybe won't be as successful as the Switch, but will definitely be a good success. Like, I think so the Wii U had a lot of issues. I could talk about the issues with the Wii U for days if I had a script or something in front of me. But overall, the feel that the Wii U will be like foreshadowing for the Switch 2, I don't think so. One, the Switch 2 is marketed better. Two, like, people know it's a new console, and people also just, more people want it. But the Switch 2 is definitely similar to the Wii U. And so, one, I don't think the Wii U is foreshadowing the Switch, but I do think that the Switch is off to a rockier start than maybe Nintendo wanted. And I definitely think that's going to come through with the sales, but I don't think it will stay that way. I think Nintendo will do just minor course corrections, and they'll be back on track. Because that's the other difference between the Wii U and the Switch 2. The Switch 2 has some problems, but nothing that some minor adjustments can't fix. The Wii U had problems to the core. It had a gimmick that really wasn't useful at all. It was appealing to casuals and hardcore gamers in a way, in the most unhappy medium imaginable. And it just didn't have enough games. The Switch 2, like, already is not having any of those issues. And the Switch has already, like, closed that gap between hardcore and casual gamers a lot. So, no, I don't think the Switch 2 is the next Wii U. But I also, like, to the Nintendo fans, don't jump to saying, oh, the Switch was so successful, the Switch 2 is going to be just as successful. It might not be. There are some issues with the Switch, I won't deny that. Specifically the pricing. Personally, that's really my only issue, if I'm being honest. Everything else I've actually been very happy about. I haven't really had any issues. But the pricing really is hard to swallow. So I think, yeah, people saying it's going to be immediately successful, it's not. It's a new console. It's not going to sell a million billion units straight away. However, I do think that if you're worried that Nintendo has a rough few years ahead, I wouldn't. I think Nintendo knows enough now what they're doing to at least get, like, a moderate enough success out of the Switch 2 to where they're still producing all the games we want. They know how to sell and market their games, and they're starting to tap into what people want. So all that to say, yes, I'm worried about the Switch 2, and I do think the pricing is going to cause it to lose some potential buyers, but I don't think it's the end of the world. I think Nintendo will realize this sooner or later, or even if they don't, they're gonna keep making games. I really hope the pricing gets better, but, you know, Nintendo will be fine. So don't worry that if the Switch 2 is a bit rough, like, no one will ever buy it. The Switch 2 will be fine, Nintendo will be fine, all the games will keep coming out, and it won't be another Wii U. And also, guys, the Wii U was so good. I have so many good childhood memories of it. It was underrated. Alright, bye.